Welcome to the DevReady Podcast. Joining me on the DevReady Podcast today, I have Nikos Patsis. Nikos, I haven't met you before, so for those of you that are new to the episode, I've never met Nikos. I don't know much about him, so I'll let you take it away and introduce yourself because I will never be able to do that justice.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you for reaching out. This is really wonderful what you're doing. I'm an engineer by training. I studied at the National Technical University of Athens, which is the number one engineering school in Greece. And then I moved to the US. I went to Harvard to do a PhD on financial engineering. I wanted to branch out of the very technical. And in fact, my thesis was on exotic options pricing. For those familiar with finance a little bit, that means that anything that cannot be priced by the standard Black-Scholes equation is considered to be an exotic option. So that's what I studied. I came up with a method to be able to price such options, which led me actually to my first job, which is rare because I had the opportunity to actually apply what I have done at the private equity fund in New York that was investing in small and medium listed enterprise on the New York Stock Exchange that for some reason didn't have easy access to funding, and we would give them a convertible preferred with a hidden warrant to convert into common shares that nobody knew how to price. So this is where I come in. I was the only one. So we would take advantage of that. I mean, the investment banker on the size of the company would come and say, listen, we cannot price that, so forget it, let's just leave it as that. We were able not only to price it, but also to delta hedge it and make it into an arbitrage opportunity, because essentially from day one we would be able to capture that profit until we exited. These were fun times until the regulator came in and added lots of restrictions that made it unviable. And then I moved on to to a larger fund in Bermuda, physically in Bermuda. Bermuda, for those who don't know about it, is the most prestigious and highly regulated offshore jurisdiction, and it requires you to actually be there. It's not like any other offshore place that you
Didn't
can
know that.
set up a fund and just be somewhere else. So I spent 3 years there, best times of my life. It was a really fun time. Before I decided, for mostly for personal reasons, and to to go back to Greece, and then I switched on to my entrepreneurial career, which is mostly relevant to what we're discussing today. I started two companies during that period. One was actually based in Guatemala, although I was based in Athens myself. I worked with two other co-founders that lived in Guatemala, and we started a value-added services, mobile value-added services provider for Central America, which went very well. We expanded in all the neighboring countries like Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, Costa Rica, and then managed to successfully sell this to a group, local competitor, actually. But what is more relevant and what I would like to focus on today is my second company that I started in Greece. It's called VoiceWeb, and it is a conversational AI company. Back then, when I started it, we didn't call it conversational AI. It was a little ahead of times, but this is what we call it today. So essentially, a company automating customer care for large enterprises.
Okay.
So the voice bots and chat bots that you see everywhere, we were one of the early pioneers. I also sold that company 3 years ago, and since then I invest as an angel investor and advise companies as a mentor, advisor on things that I'm good at, and not on the things that as an entrepreneur was forced to do. Because
Yep.
to be honest, as an entrepreneur, I've done everything. But there are many things that I wouldn't hire me to do. There are some
Yeah.
things that I would hire me happily, but most of them I would not hire me
And
to do.
that's, I think, something a lot of entrepreneurs resonate with is you have to do everything when you're starting because you don't have the luxury of hiring people just to do one role. If someone comes on board, they also have to wear lots of hats and pull their weight around
Absolutely,
everywhere. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
when did you start the conversational AI business, VoiceWeb?
Okay, that was started in early 2000s.
Oh, very early. Okay.
Yes, yes,
Yep.
and that's why we had to educate the market. Actually, nobody knew what we were talking about. Everybody thought we were crazy, and one of the funniest things of that early time was that we were trying to sell our solution to major banks or mostly banks and telcos, because these were
Hmm.
the first movers. And as we were explaining return on investment and how they would be able to reduce the size of their call center, for example, by adopting our solution, the CEO of a very traditional bank said, "Listen, guys, this is all fine, and I really like what you're offering, and I think it would really work. However, I'm not allowed to reduce the size of my call center, because if I do, it would be chaos.
Chaos.
I mean, I think even the prime minister is going to call me and ask me, what are you doing? How are you doing? That
Oh, well.
was, 20 years ago. Obviously, things has changed, but it shows you how early
Yeah.
we were.
There's people losing their jobs all over the place in large numbers at the moment, and not many people say much except for those affected, which is a bad way to have things go because a lot of it is people attributing it to AI now. But yeah,
Yeah.
back then it would have been
Yeah,
very,
that's
very
why
different.
that's why I mentioned that it's really, I mean, it's a really different era right now.
Yep.
Back then, people were sensitive about things like
Yep.
that, as they should be. And I understand that you cannot stop technology. It's a force of nature, and it can't be stopped. But at the same time, you need to be prepared
Hmm.
as an administration. But this is a whole different subject. So
Yep.
let's.
So, what sort of technology were you working with at that time? So, early 2000s, from my memory, it would have been like the voice synthesizers.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you're spot on. We started working with voice recognition technologies to allow us to understand callers that would call the call center, and we were um, dealing with very large enterprises, because otherwise they wouldn't have the return on investment. I mean, you needed a
Yep.
certain size. And obviously, size is relevant, because a big company in Australia might not be as big in the US,
Yep.
for
Of
example,
course.
or Greece, which is even smaller. But so by our standards, we would be targeting large enterprises, and we would try at first to automate their incoming call volume. So we were working with voice recognition software, and trying to, with very archaic tools nowadays, to design a pleasant flow and a pleasant customer experience that would allow us to automate, not 100%, but at least partially to automate the call without needing to transfer to a human agent.
Okay.
That was the beginning, and then we branched out to text-based customer care, to chatbots. And of course, after a while, we started experimenting with AI as well, especially the big jump happened after the famous now Transformers article that was issued by Google. And then everything changed because it gave us the opportunity to really dig into what AI can do and how we can offer pre-trained models that we didn't have to specifically train on the customer's data.
Because that would have been the hard part, is training the models to either detect the voice, so speech to text, or the text to speech back to the customer, especially then, because before that was all you need is attention. That article from that white paper from Google was probably Watson. IBM Watson was one of the bigger things that was around with AI, and that wasn't used too much by a lot of people either.
Yeah, because Watson had a very can I say, a hostile approach to enterprises. I mean, they were IBM. They were the large enterprise, the only authority in the field back then. So they wouldn't care about the customer's needs. They would just say, listen, you just take what we have and you educate yourself enough to be able to apply it. But that would never work. So companies like us would stand by the customer side and help them step by step implement exactly what they needed, and we would have a much better chance of succeeding. And in fact, we did succeed. We started through lots of ups and downs, because you're of Greek origin, so you might know, but Greece went through its worst financial crisis that lasted for a decade. And at that time, our local market simply disappeared. I mean, I would go to one of the largest banks, to the CIO, the Chief Information Officer of one of the largest banks here in Greece, and he would tell me, back then, listen, my entire budget, IT budget for the year is 50,000 euros. So, I mean, I can't even discuss with you. Let's have a coffee. And
Because you couldn't even buy new laptops for the business.
Nothing. Yes.
Yeah,
so
nothing
how am I even supposed to be discussing with you? I don't want to waste your time. So, but that was, I mean, obviously that was a blow at the beginning, but that forced us to move outside Greece, and we did really well. I mean, we started expanding into neighboring countries first, in the Balkans, Turkey, and then Middle East and Africa. So we ended up selling our solutions in more than 30 countries. In those geographies, and very high caliber customers like Vodafone in Turkey, for example, or Raiffeisen Bank, or the MTN Group, which is one of the largest operator groups in the world, with presence in 22 countries in Africa. So that went well, and what I would like to mention was that a particularly happy time for us was when we secured our Series A funding, and we were extremely happy. You get the wire in your bank account, and you feel that you are,
top
of the world. And nobody tells you, and this is actually one of the things that I would like to stress today, that nobody tells you that the actual problems begin then, and the work and a lot of hidden challenges that you hadn't budgeted for. And let me name a few, because as I told you at the beginning, before the call, my motivation for doing this is that I know that I've made lots of mistakes, and I would like to help new founders avoid them if possible. I know sometimes you have to go through the motion, so sometimes you can't avoid them.
Yeah. You may help one person, and then that makes all the difference.
Yes. Yes. So funding from an institutional investor comes with lots of baggage, and the most important one is that there is a time tax that nobody talks about. The moment you have an institutional investor, you start needing to report, to always communicate with the investor, to provide information, which ends up being a huge time burden, especially when your team still needs you for product guidance, for international expansion, for everything that you were doing before. So you end up wasting your time in investor relations, in board meeting preparations, audits, updates, things like that.
Yep.
And there is no easy solution around it. The best advice that I can offer is that try to standardize it as much as possible. So simple information on regular intervals, on a specific day and time, even every month, let's say, and always have someone prepare everything on your behalf so that you can only go and present. Because that's important. I mean, you can't lose 30% of yourself all of a sudden simply because you have because that's something you
Yep.
haven't budgeted for.
Yep.
Second mistake, and obviously it's not the experiences of its founder are different, but in my case, one of the things that we really suffered through was the lack of a technical founder. I mean, we had a technical founder. I had a technical co-founder at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
who I knew from my days in the US, a very capable guy who eventually, literally a year and a half after we started, decided to pursue an academic career. So he left me hanging. And I
Yep.
thought back then, I thought that that's okay, because we can always hire the help, and we tried. We had lots of talented engineers and lots of heads of engineering teams, but nobody really owning the architecture and the
Okay.
tech stack like a founder would. So in the end, we never managed to replace him fully, and that's something I realized much later. Uh, and it also had a secondary effect, negative effect, that hiring also became harder, because without a tech leader, you couldn't hire the best engineers either, because engineers usually don't go somewhere for the money or for the prestige. They go because someone inspires them, and they want to be part of something bigger than themselves. And if you don't have that, if you have a hired gun or even an outsourced CTO, it won't be the same. So I can't emphasize that enough. Um, Third lesson was that founders should be very careful about selecting the right investor. The investor that understands their business, and who is willing to be by their side, supporting no matter what, through the highs and lows. In our case, as it turned out, we didn't have the right investor. We had a bank actually investing in us. Banks are notoriously bad at investing in tech companies because they're in a different business.
Yep.
Um, and and sometimes, even if temporarily you feel like the people that are actually handling the investment are fantastic. That can always change, as it did in our case, because the people handling the investment and in our case were fantastic, really. I mean, they had just come from London and New York to start a brand new venture capital and private equity function at the bank. However, after the Greek crisis that I mentioned, they all left the country because all of a sudden their salaries and bonuses were cut in half. And then the bank replaced them with internal people, and that's how that's when the trouble started, and everything changed. So my lesson from that was that always try. I know it's hard for a founder who's eager to get their funding to be selective. Usually you just need the money, so you don't care about who it is. But I, you need to be very careful about who, because essentially this is a wedding of sorts. I mean, your investor will be there for the long term, and ideally you shouldn't even have one investor. You should have more, so that they can balance each other, and always have a truly independent member on your board that can provide some sound and advice outside of the conflicting interests.
So, what sort of investor would you have looked for then? Would it be one that had value to provide to the business, which either through markets or networks or product?
Yeah, yeah, that's the a very important question, actually. Thanks for asking. And it's I think it's one of two things. You should either um, select someone, if obviously if you have the choice, but you should select someone who can provide value to the business, or so that could be maybe a corporate who's in the business, or a potential, and they could even be your future exit if everything goes well, or a fund that is investing in your space. Sometimes founders avoid that because they don't want their investor to be investing in their competitors as well, and that will eventually happen if the investor is dedicated to a specific space.
Mm-hmm.
However, the value you get out of someone who has seen your specific problems in advance is really invaluable, actually. So
Yep.
I don't think that we should be, as founders, we should be hesitant
No,
in
because
that
there's more
case.
benefit to that as well. There may be a potential merger in the future or a joint venture or some other opportunity as well, not just they're investing. If they're investing in both parties, that's because they believe in something. They think it would work.
And
Otherwise, they're not going to invest their
they
money.
expect the entire sector to grow. So
Yep.
there is an opportunity down the road. Maybe it's not visible yet, but there is an opportunity down the road. Yes, that could
Yep.
be.
So that would be the biggest thing compared to an institutional investor like the banks that are just putting money out, and then their day to day is not to operate a venture fund or a studio to
Yes.
invest. It's the bank is their priority, and this is just them trying to figure out how to make more return on the money that they've got.
Yeah, yeah. That's a difference. And that obviously that's a newer concept that didn't exist back in our days. But I very much like the concept of operational VC that you see nowadays mostly in the US, but also in Europe. And that is the type of VC that understands that you need a different skill set to bring your company from 0 to 1, and then a completely different skill set to bring it from 1 to 2 to 3. So scaling a business is different than starting a business, and that's why these types of VCs are ready and willing to offer operational expertise on the areas that the startup really needs. It's not the same for everyone. Someone might need, branding. Someone might need help with international expansion, or even with product development, or even with your AI stack. But a VC, an operational VC, might be able to spot this easily, much faster than the founder sometimes, and step in and provide help, not necessarily directly, but maybe through some vetted suppliers. And that can speed up the scaling process a lot,
Oh,
and
definitely.
help the company avoid pitfalls.
Yeah, I think most startups, when they're building software or in tech, they think the technical challenge is the biggest problem. But that is, if you spend enough time and you have the right engineers or people involved, you'll solve those challenges. I think it's the scaling issues that become more of a problem, because generally, either you're a tech founder, you're a programmer or an engineer, and you're doing something that you think is worth doing, or you're a someone who's had generally experience in another field. You've done well and you think, I've got this idea, I can do well here. But they haven't grown businesses, or they're not running the entire business when there's 10 people or 50 or 100 or 300. They're very different kinds of people you need at each of those levels, like you mentioned.
Yes, and in fact, as a wearing the hat of the investor nowadays, I always look for companies, for startups that are out to build a company, are out to build a business, not a product, and
Yeah.
that makes a huge difference. That's what I always tell them, guys. You're building a product. I'm not interested. I want the team that will build a business. So that's exactly what you mentioned. It goes beyond the technical. I need the team to be aware of what it takes, because sometimes um, a huge misconception is that if we build the product, everything will happen, but it doesn't. I mean,
It never does.
distribution beats product any day.
Yeah.
And you've seen, I mean, we have thousands of examples of lesser quality products succeeding because of better distribution, for example, and better positioning. So, yeah, I mean, it takes, and obviously, and especially when you want to start selling internationally, and you have to understand the intricacies of its local market, and how they work, what it takes to be able. I mean, that's a huge area of growth for founders, and unfortunately, there is not much um, available expertise out there,
No,
available
I can imagine there
on
wouldn't be.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
you can educate yourself on technical details, and you can be the best that there is in your field, but nobody will teach you how to do channel management, for example, or
Yeah.
how to expand.
And I think what you mentioned there, it's focus on a business, not a product. That puts you in a better position overall, because now you're going to have a business that can make revenue, ideally making profit. You'll be in a better position for investment as well, because you've proven that the business can work, it can make money, there's demand, there's market fit.
Yes, absolutely. Market fit is huge, and it's not static either. I mean, it's dynamic because markets are changing. So you need to be able to also change
Yeah.
as you go along. But and each market is different. So if you may have market fit in one market, but not in the other. So yes, hugely important.
Was that one of the bigger problems you had when you entered those 30 different countries? There's language problems in each country, but then there's cultural, and I'm assuming the way people bank in one country is not the same as another country, where one may be completely on the phone all the time, and the other one maybe they're always going through the doors to the tellers. So there's probably variations in between as well.
Thankfully, we focused much. I mean, as you probably understood, I've always I had I was lucky enough to have a very international career. I've lived and worked in many
Yep.
different countries. So that was a thing that fortunately I was very sensitive about. And so we emphasized a lot on being able to understand the local markets, especially in Middle East and Africa, where they really, I mean, they it's really important to them to be able to approach them in a way that is respectful of their local customs and it was a surprise to us at the beginning that we were able to beat much larger companies, especially coming from the US, uh, that didn't understand that.
Okay.
We would be, because as I told you, we were targeting very large enterprises. So the competition we had was insane. I mean, we
Hmm.
were competing against Google and Amazon and IBM and
Oh
Microsoft.
well.
But I don't know how it is today, but back then these guys didn't invest in understanding local needs, and that allowed
Yep.
much smaller companies like us to be able to win and actually successfully deliver as well.
Okay. That could be. I've heard of it as like the US centric, so they're US first, and then it'll work everywhere else. It doesn't matter
Yes,
almost like
yes,
that
and
sort
it
of
didn't.
attitude.
Exactly, and it didn't. And after a while, people were getting annoyed because they felt disrespected.
Yep. Yeah, because it's you can't just come in and dictate how things should happen. They have to work with the organization, and when you're dealing with very
Especially
large
when it is,
organizations.
especially when it is a lot. I mean, I mentioned to you the MTN group before.
Hmm.
MTN is has presence in 22 different countries, and if you Google it, you will see that in terms of global subscribers, they are number 5 in the world, behind the
Wow.
big Chinese and uh, uh, Indian telcos.
Yep.
So when you have someone like that, you need to be respectful of what they need.
Of course. Just before we wrap up, Nikos, is there anything else you just want to leave someone listening who's either maybe looking at funding now or on the way to thinking, all right, I'm going to funding, yeah, how should I sort of pick or anything along the lines or any other idea?
Yeah, one struggle, especially which gets worse actually, because there is a lack of talent around the world, huge lack of talent at this time. So the big struggle is how to attract people and how to avoid bad hires. You cannot avoid them entirely, but at least you have to be quick about admitting your mistakes. I've made lots of bad hires in my career, and I will probably continue to do so, because there is no magic formula, you know. But at
Yep.
least a couple of things that I learned was that you shouldn't hire for resumes. You should hire for the practical benefit that you will get out of it. You should have very specific milestones, set very specific milestones early on. You could even, I found that very useful in certain cases to hire someone for a short time, just as a testing period, because nothing beats evaluating someone on the job.
Yep. Of course.
Uh, and also another big mistake is that do not do not keep uh, nice people, loyal people, just because they're nice and loyal. I mean, because they're not your friends. This is a company that has specific targets, especially when you have an investor on your back. And you always come up with an excuse if someone is underperforming or not performing at all. You come up with an excuse, but he has been loyal for such a long time. He has been so nice, and he's pleasant to everybody. But the thing is that he's not, or she is not, delivering. And this is the only criterion. This is the only factor to.
And then as you scale, that person's skills might not translate to the next level of where the business needs to go. So that's what ends up happening.
And they will create lots of unnecessary problems with your team as well. Essentially, your team pays the burden of your bad decision.
Yeah, and then that affects them.
Yeah. And sometimes because that's how companies work, especially as they grow, and the distance between the CEO and everybody else is getting larger. Sometimes you don't even hear about it until much later, until it's big.
Of course, that's the challenge of growing a business.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, Nico, it's been a pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you for your time. If anyone wants to reach out and find out more about yourself or just get in touch, how can they do that?
Listen, they can find me on LinkedIn. We could share my profile.
Yep.
Or even by email. I can share.
Yep. We'll add that to the show notes when we put the episode out. All right,
yes,
we'll do.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Nico. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, and it was a great
Same
chat.
here, Anthony. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Not a problem. Thank you.